Listen to me carefully, because this might bring you peace and save you from paying money you never truly owed. A few months ago, I sat across the table from a soft-spoken woman named Myra. 74 years old, a widow. She had just paid $890 for a bill she thought was mandatory. The paper looked official. It used legal-sounding words. She said, "I was afraid if I didn't pay, someone would come after me." Myra is smart. She's proud. But fear made her reach for her checkbook. And here's the twist. She didn't legally owe that money. The law was on her side, but no one had told her. This video is for every senior who has ever looked at a bill and whispered, "I don't know if I can afford this." Or worse, "I'm too tired to fight." Because here's what the companies hope: that you'll be too overwhelmed to ask questions, that you'll pay in silence, that no one will stand beside you. But today, I will. I'm not just a lawyer. I've spent 15 years helping older adults protect what's theirs. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 6 common bills that many seniors feel pressured to pay, but aren't legally required to. And make sure you stay until the end, because the last one is not only the most manipulative, it's the one I see trapping seniors into paying again and again. So grab a notebook or just listen closely. And if any of this reminds you of something you've experienced, share it in the comments. Your story could help someone else feel less alone. And don't forget to tap that like button so this reaches more people who need it. Now, let's begin with one of the most misunderstood and fear-inducing types of bills: surprise medical charges. When Ellen opened her mail, she expected a birthday card from her niece. Instead, she found a $100 bill from a specialist she never met, at a hospital she thought was fully covered by her insurance. She sat at her kitchen table, confused and embarrassed. She said, "I don't even remember seeing that doctor. But what if not paying hurts my credit?" Here's the truth. Many seniors, especially after an emergency, get hit with surprise medical bills they were never warned about. This happens when you're treated by an out-of-network provider at an in-network facility, or when a service wasn't properly pre-approved. But under laws like the No Surprises Act, you're protected. If the care happened in an emergency or at an in-network hospital, and you didn't knowingly sign a consent form, you often don't legally owe the full bill. That's a powerful starting point. From my work, I've seen that many bills are inflated due to coding errors, unnecessary add-ons, or outright miscommunication between your doctor and your insurer. And yes, it's frustrating, but also fixable. You can appeal the charge. You can request an itemized bill. And if you feel unsure, you can ask the provider directly. "Can you show me the signed agreement where I approved these fees?" One study from the Kaiser Family Foundation found that 2/3 of patients never even tried to appeal. But among those who did, over 50% had their bill reduced or dismissed entirely. If this happened to you or to someone you love, know this: you're not causing trouble by asking questions. You're protecting what you worked for. And if a bill like this shows up in your mailbox again, take a breath. Let your lawyer brain switch on. You have time, you have rights, you can do this too. Coming up next, we'll talk about another hidden trap: debt collectors who call you about someone else's loan and hope you don't know the law. A week after burying her husband, Judith picked up the phone and heard, "Ma'am, we need you to take care of your late husband's balance today, or risk further action." Her hands shook. She whispered, "But I didn't sign anything. It was his card." This is where grief meets legal manipulation. Countless seniors, especially widows, are quietly pressured to pay off a loved one's debts they don't legally owe. And in moments of sorrow, guilt becomes currency. Here's the law. Unless you co-sign the loan or are legally bound to the account, you are not responsible for a deceased person's debts. Not as a spouse, not as a child, not as the surviving friend who picked up the phone, but debt collectors know how to blur that line. They'll send letters addressed to the estate, but speak as if you personally owe it. They lean on your confusion and even more on your kindness. I've seen it too many times. One woman I worked with received notices about her brother's medical debt. No shared account, no agreement, just her last name. She almost paid it, until we asked one simple question. Can you show us the signed agreement with her name on it? They couldn't. The call stopped. Emotionally, this hits deep. Because when you've lost someone, you're not just managing grief. You're fighting to keep your stability. And behind every demand letter is that silent fear. If I don't pay, am I dishonoring them? Let me say this clearly as your lawyer. Grief should never come with a balance due. You are allowed to mourn without being financially hunted. The FTC confirms this. Debt collectors cannot make you pay from your own money unless you're legally tied to the account. If they try, demand written proof. Ask for the original agreement. If they don't have it, you can walk away. No shame, no guilt. You can do this too. One letter, one call, one boundary at a time. Next, we'll talk about something even more personal. When a friend or neighbor claims you owe them money, but there's no paperwork to prove it. One quiet Sunday after church, Maria got a message from a neighbor she hadn't spoken to in months. Hey, about that $500 you borrowed during lockdown. When can I expect it back? Maria sat frozen. She remembered them dropping off groceries. She remembered the kindness, but she didn't remember agreeing to pay anything back. This is where generosity becomes a trap. Seniors, especially women, are often targeted in these informal loan situations. A favor quietly turns into a demand. A helping hand becomes a bill. But here's the truth. If there's no written contract, no terms, and no proof, it's not legally enforceable. Now, I'm not telling you to ignore your conscience. If you truly borrowed and agreed to repay someone, integrity matters. But if someone brings up money months or years later with no signed document, no text, no email, no banknote labeled loan, then they carry the burden of proof, not you. I once helped a retired librarian who was being hounded by a former caregiver, claiming she'd borrowed $800 in cash years ago. No written note, no agreement, just pressure, and the threat of telling others at church. We asked for proof. They had none. It ended right there. Emotionally, this kind of situation stirs up deep fears. Will people think I'm dishonest? Will this ruin my reputation? Am I being forgetful? It's okay to ask these questions. It's also okay to set boundaries. From a legal lens, here's the key. A verbal loan is hard to enforce unless it's documented clearly and proven. Courts typically don't uphold casual promises without dates, terms, and signatures. And no, guilt is not a binding agreement. If someone approaches you with this kind of "you owe me" energy, here's what to do. Stay calm, ask for documentation, and don't pay out of pressure. You can even say, "I don't recall this being a formal loan, and I need to speak with someone before I make any decisions." You have every right to pause, to protect your peace, and to honor the truth, not just their version of it. You can do this too. One quiet boundary could save you hundreds. Next, we'll talk about a bill that shows up in the mail even when you didn't use the service, and why you don't always have to pay it. 3 months after moving into her son's home in Ohio, 76-year-old Mrs. Elaine Carter opened her mailbox to find a $527 gas bill from the townhouse she left behind. She'd already canceled her account, handed over the keys, and hadn't set foot there since. But now she was being told she owed for weeks of service she never used. This kind of thing happens all too often. Seniors downsize, move in with family, or transition to assisted living. And weeks or months later, a utility bill follows them like a shadow. And here's the truth. I want you to hear clearly. If you no longer lived at that address and the service wasn't in your name or under your control, you are not legally responsible for paying it. Sometimes utility companies fail to close the account properly. Other times, a new tenant or even a property manager lets the service continue, hoping the former resident, often a quiet, kind senior, will just pay the bill out of confusion or guilt. I helped a retired librarian named Nancy who received a $380 water bill for her old apartment 2 months after she moved into senior housing. When we asked for documentation, the company couldn't show a meter reading, a service request, or even her name on the account. The bill disappeared the moment they were held accountable. Here's what you need to do if this happens to you. Ask for written proof of the dates of service, meter readings, and the account name. Provide a copy of your move-out notice or lease termination if available. If you've already moved, ask someone you trust to check the property. Sometimes the utilities were never shut off at all. And most importantly, never pay a bill just to avoid the hassle. That payment could be interpreted as admitting responsibility. Under consumer protection laws in most U.S. states, utility providers must verify charges before pursuing collections. And you have every right to dispute the bill in writing and request a full investigation. You can do this too. One calm phone call, one confident question. It's often all it takes to protect your finances and your peace of mind. Now, let's look at a type of debt that goes back years, and why, even if someone demands payment, the law might be fully on your side. Mrs. Diane Morgan, 72, was sipping her morning tea when the phone rang. A collector claimed she owed $3,200 on a department store credit card from over a decade ago. Her hands trembled. She barely remembered the card, let alone the debt. "If you don't pay," the voice said coldly, "we'll escalate this." That moment? It's when fear meets forgetfulness, and that's exactly what some collectors count on. But here's what I told her, and what I want you to remember too. In most states, you cannot be sued for a debt once it's past the statute of limitations, which is often just 3 to 6 years for credit card and medical debts. That old bill, legally uncollectible. The danger comes when seniors, out of fear or guilt, make a small payment or admit the debt is real. That small gesture can restart the legal clock, giving the collector a fresh timeline to sue. The law calls these time-barred debts. They may still contact you, but they cannot force you to pay, and they cannot take you to court unless you unknowingly give them permission. I once helped a widow in Pennsylvania who was receiving threats over a 2006 personal loan. The collector used phrases like, "We're watching your credit," and "We can still report this." But after we requested verification under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they backed off immediately. No lawsuit, no payment, no harm done. If this happens to you, stay calm. Don't confirm anything over the phone. Ask for a written validation letter. They must prove the debt is legally enforceable. Look up your state's statute of limitations or call a legal aid office for help. You can do this too. One small change, a pause before answering, can protect your entire retirement. And now, let's talk about something even more heartbreaking, when the bill wasn't real at all, but a scam designed to prey on your trust. Last winter, Mrs. Eleanor James opened a letter that looked serious, stamped "Final Notice." It said she owed $389 for a home security system she never signed up for. There was a customer ID, a support phone line, and even her address. It felt real, but it wasn't. This is how scammers work now. Their bills look official. Their emails are polished. Their phone voices are calm, but firm. And their favorite targets? Seniors who value order, peace, and doing the right thing. The danger isn't just the money, it's the self-doubt they plant. That, what if they're right? That fear of missing a payment. That worry you're being irresponsible. Here's the legal truth. If you didn't sign up for the service, you don't owe anything. Scammers use bits of public information to trick you into believing a fake bill is real. And once you pay once, they often keep coming back. I always tell my clients, trust your gut. If something feels off, don't rush. Ask yourself, did I ever sign anything? Did I talk to this company before? Why are they asking for gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards? Legitimate companies won't demand weird payments, and they won't threaten legal action without proper documentation. One tip I always give: ask for their business license number and full company name. Look them up online. If you find complaints or no trace at all, you've likely avoided a trap. According to the FTC, seniors lose over $3 billion a year to fraud, and a big part of that is phantom billing. But it doesn't have to be you. You have the right to ask questions, to delay payment, to hang up and verify. You still have control. Please share this part of the video with someone you love. It might save them from being taken advantage of. And now, let's bring everything we've talked about together, because you deserve peace, not pressure. Today, we talked about medical bills you can fight, debts that have legally expired, false claims from others, even loved ones, and the growing number of scam bills that prey on your trust. All of it aimed at helping you take back control. Because here's the truth: you weren't raised in a world of fine print, automated billing, or phishing emails. You came from a time when a handshake meant something and bills made sense. So if the system feels confusing now, it's not your fault. It's okay to slow down, ask questions, and say, I need time. You still have rights. You still have choices. And most importantly, you still have the power to protect your peace. One small change can make a big difference. If this video helped, please share it with someone you love. A neighbor, a sister, a friend. Your wisdom might protect their savings too. And tell us in the comments, what bill are you going to take another look at this week? I'm not just a lawyer. I'm someone who believes your calm and your dignity should never be a monthly sacrifice.